Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. This is your Manchester United versus Brighton preview. What I believe is going to be our hardest game of the season and certainly our hardest game left in this season as we take on the mighty Brighton, and I'm not taking the piss, away from home on Thursday night. So we're going to preview that. We've also got the latest on the bid. Is the Sir Jim Radcliffe charm offensive starting to work? News today coming out that Paul Mitchell, the holy grail of Director of Footballs, is on Sir Jim Radcliffe's target list if he's the owner. It feels to me like it's spin. A lot of people don't like that, but it's an opinion, and I'll explain why a little bit later on. There's a little bit, you've probably seen the show earlier with Adam and Beth talking about the Qatar determination to get hold of Manchester United. I'll give you my 2 pennies worth on why that might fail or might be successful as well. So we'll get into all of that. But first of all, it is the preview. We're a little bit early tonight because I'm doing Arsenal versus Chelsea on That's Football straight after this. I'm not very late, Dal. I'm about 5 minutes late. That's not very late for me. Trust me. Anyway, let's fly straight into this. While we do, remember we've got the TUS Predictor you can play in. 3 of you got 10 out of 10. And won 510 quid each. So if you want to play that, you've got to be over 18. You can also play the free league if you want to. BeGambleAware.org. Links in the video description. Or you can scan the QR code. 10 questions about the game versus Brighton. It'll be things like, will Bruno get an assist? Will there be more than 5 corners? All those sort of things. 510 quid, 3 people won last time. And even Adam, our own Adam from the channel, won a tenner because he got 9 out of 10. So give it a go, well worth a look. And yeah, let's hit this Brighton game. So I think in relation to the Brighton game, I suppose the thing that I want to say first of all is that, you know, it's the old adage, isn't it? In fact, let me just, before I do my predicted lineup, let me just come here. It's the old adage that we've had again with Brighton and everybody else, Spurs last week. We've had this a lot this season. And it basically comes down to how we've done away from home. We've just not been very good away from home this season, and we all know that. So I'm just going to show you the league table, which for some reason just doesn't seem to want to come up. Get up. There it is. So if you look at the league table there, that's the situation. I don't think we need to worry about Brighton. And I'm going to say this. There's a very big chance we'll lose to Brighton, even though I don't think we will. And I'll explain when we go through the team lineup in a minute. Brighton are not a threat. They have 1 game in hand on us. If they beat us, we would still be 8 points ahead of them. So we don't need to worry about Brighton. We don't need to worry about Villa. We don't need to worry about Tottenham. And we don't really need to worry about Liverpool. Top 4 is within our hands, regardless of the result against Brighton, because we've got 63 points, and effectively 70 points will get us top 4, which means we need 7 points from our remaining 6 games, which would be bloody ridiculous if we didn't get it. But what interests me more about this league table here, my good people, is that Man City beat us when we played them away. Arsenal beat us when we played them away. Newcastle beat us when we played them away. Liverpool beat us when we played them away. Tottenham got a draw out of us last week when we played them away. Villa beat us when we played them away. Brentford beat us when they played us away. And Brighton is our final team to play in the top 9. Now, obviously, I could include Fulham for a bit of a positive news story. We did beat them. But the top 9... we've not beaten anybody away from home this season. This is our last chance to do it against Brighton, and I really hope that we can, because I think, you know, it's a weird record in a very, very good season, and it has been a good season for United. I mean, to get top 4, to win a trophy, to be in a domestic final of the FA Cup as well, it's been a good season. But that away record, it's a very, and it's like CGI Future says, that's crazy. It's amazing. Because you can spin a positive and say, how are we 3rd or 4th in the top 4 with that away record? And that's something we can improve next year and hopefully get more points. I mean, there's probably another 6, 7, maybe even 10 points there if you can sort that out. Another 10 points puts you right in amongst it, doesn't it? So you can see what needs to be done to get United in a title race. You've got to sort that away record out against the top 10. So it's our last opportunity to do it against Brighton. Now, why do I think we'll get a positive result against Brighton? Because a lot of people are like, you're having a laugh. He's having a laugh. What's he on about? He's having a laugh. We won't get a positive result against Brighton. I'll tell you why I think we'll get a positive result against Brighton. Is because I think everybody's expecting Brighton to win this. And you might have noticed at the weekend, they smashed the living daylights out of Wolves. They put a muzzle on them and they threw them out into the rain. Wouldn't let them back in. and was mocking them with the pedigree chum at the window, saying, "Have that, because you're not having that." It was a humiliation for the Wolves on the weekend, and someone should have called the RSPCA. It was bloody disgusting. So treat Wolves like that was just embarrassing for Wolves and disgusting. And I was tempted when it hit 5-0. I was tempted to pick that phone up and say, RSPCA, this is cruelty to Wolves. It's just disgusting. They absolutely humiliated them. And the amazing thing was, Matoma, Casido and McAllister were rested for that game. So I think Matoma was rested, certainly Casido and McAllister. So a lot of people are going, well, they've just smashed Wolves and they've rested people for Manchester United because De Zerbi and Brighton want to give United a beating after the FA Cup semi-final, where Jesse Marsh missed a penalty. But the thing is, when you actually look at Brighton's home record this season, away record, they're 4th in the league away. Like their away record, we're 5th, they're 4th. Their away record's very good. Their home record is more mid-table. Their home record's not as good as people think. Now, I think I think they've conceded something like the 2nd or 3rd least at home. We're the best, but I think I wrote it down somewhere. At home this season, they've won 8, they've drawn 3, and they've lost 4. So they only win about 50% of their games at home. So I think we might get a draw out of this on Thursday. I think people might be writing us off a little bit. I think we might get a draw out of this. And mainly because I don't think Brighton, I think they're more than capable of battering us, but I think people underestimate how good our team is at the moment. And I thought against Villa we played very, very well. And I thought in the first half against Spurs we played well. So I'm going to fancy us in a draw this. Mark, hoping you're good and love the United stand. And what's your prediction on Thursday? And do you think the Glazers will sell the club? We're going to talk about that in a minute, Dylan. So yeah, I'm going to go with a draw in this. This is how I think we should line up. A lot of people. I was reading the chat. I'm always reading the chat before the show, just taking notes of what people are saying. See if I can nick a good comment. Nothing. You let me down tonight. But my biggest reason I don't want to Jim is his ruining of Nice. The fans hate him. He hasn't transformed them in the French league. He hasn't even invested, says Hamza. We're going to talk about that in a minute. We can even do a poll. But that is why I think we'll get a result. Because I actually think we've been playing really well at the moment, United. I think Lindelof and Shaw have been fantastic, and there's no reason why that won't continue. At fullback, I think you've got 3 people that can do the job, Wan-Bissaka, Dalot and Malacia. In midfield, you've got Casemiro, Eriksen, you could play Bruno. And I think if we start Martial in this game, we can put Rashford off the left, who works better away from home off the left, and Anthony off the right. And I think that team is capable. And I think as much as we've got to respect and give praise to a very good Brighton team, I think that team goes to Brighton, gets a point, and it's another point closer to the 70 points we need. And why should 70 points be the limit? I'd like to see United hit 75 points this year. That would put us 15 points better off than last season. So I think we're more than capable of doing it. And I saw a few people in the chat saying, oh, as long as Maguire doesn't start. Look, we're playing West Ham on Sunday. Play Maguire in that game. Don't play him against Brighton, who are very good at pressing and can move the ball around. Stick with Lindelof and Shaw and give Maguire a go against West Ham. Once we've got top 4 sorted, you can play Maguire every bloody week. It doesn't matter. But for now, against the decent teams, when it matters, pick Lindelof and Shaw because they're our best centre-back pairing. And I think that team is more than capable of getting a result against Brighton. As good as Brighton are, and they're going to come for us hard. They will do. They literally rested players at the weekend and still won very, very well. And they're going to give us a game and the crowd's going to be up for it. And there's been a few times we've been to Brighton and they've played us off the park. But I think there's a real opportunity for us to go and, get a result here. And also, as I say, going back to that league table, we've not won away against any of the top 9 this season and we've only got 1 draw. So it's a terrible record. If I'm Ten Hag, this is the last opportunity to go and get a really good away result that you can take into next season then. It'd be nice if we just saw it coming for once and win when on top and in a good run. No reason to fail other than mentality, says Nick P. I agree with that. So I'm probably going to go about 2-2. And like Daz Sweet says, 3rd place is up for grabs here, isn't it? 3rd place is up for grabs. So, yeah, look, no doubt about it. Brighton are a good side. There's no doubt about it. A lot of people think we might lose this game. But I'm not having that. I'm not having that at all. I don't see why that team should be losing to Brighton. As good as Brighton are, I don't think that we've got to be wary of them. I think they're a very good side, but I don't think we need to be massively concerned about, we're going to lose a game of football, because that's just not how I'm feeling. Lucy says, well, come on, Goldbridge, what about Sancho playing? Well, look, that's only my predicted lineup. He might stick with Marcus Rashford down the middle and put Sancho off the left. There's not a huge reason not to do that. But I don't... I'd like to see Anthony Martial playing down the middle, because I think when he does play and he is fit, we're still very much in a position where I think we're a better team. But I don't pick the team, so we'll see. I mean, look, he might play Maguire at centre back, but I doubt it, and I wouldn't do it. Anyway, let's come back to here. So there has been some news today as well. I don't want to dwell on the preview too much. Remember to play the TUS Predictor game. Blaze Runner says I've just checked his Twitter, mate, so unless you want to tell us what he said, I can't see it on his Twitter, so I'm just going to ignore you. But you are a member, so I do give you a bit of credibility. But tell us what was said, because I can't see it on Twitter. Don't forget, TUS Predictor, give it a go. You can play the free league, or you can pay the £5 entry to win money. Got to be over 18, obviously. Please gamble aware. And links and terms and conditions are in the video description as usual, or you can scan the QR code to do it. 3 of you won 540 quid each against for the Spurs game. It's 10 questions, optional choice, higher or lower and all that sort of stuff. Who's going to score, penalties, not penalties, corners, the lot. 10 questions. Give it a go. Really good fun. And I didn't do very well last week, but Adam got 9 out of 10, which is very, very good. So I'll give him that. Right, let's talk about some news around Manchester United. Jay's got a super chat first, though. He says, I'm not going to lie, Mark, we're a mentally weak team. It'll be a draw at our monthly drubbing like City, Liverpool, Sevilla. Still hoping for a draw, says Jay. Probably feeling a bit negative there. Darren Mulaney's just gifted a membership as well. So look, let's catch up on what's been going on around Manchester United. I was watching the show earlier, but obviously I haven't had my say on it. So, look, is there a tide of turn in relation to what's happening with the sale of Manchester United? I suppose that's the first question. I'm going to do a little poll here. Who do you want to own United? Because, you know what? I think that, to be honest, it feels like there are some people biting back and wanting Sir Jim to own the club now. Completely up to them. Never really wanted to see any toxicity or falling out in the fan base. Everyone's got a right, of course they have. We've seen today stories of Sir Jim Radcliffe would love to get hold of Paul Mitchell. The sort of holy grail of directors of football. He's shortlisted him as a person he'd like to bring into the club. A lot of people would like that. I'm not going to deny it. I would like a director of football who knows what they're doing. There's no doubt about that. So are we starting to see the charm offensive of Sir Jim Radcliffe impact on Manchester United fans? Is that starting to now have a say? But I personally would say my personal opinion on it, just to answer that first point, is that just because... So I'm meant to get excited about a guy who's basically, in my opinion, doing exactly what the fans don't want to do, so he can get hold of the club. I don't care if you're going to get the best director of football in the world, the best striker in the world. You can do whatever you bloody well want, but you're still keeping the Glazers in power, and you're still doing it off debt. And I saw an article today. I actually saw Sir Jim Radcliffe on stage talking about debt. I don't know when the clip's from, but he was basically saying, we don't mind debt at Ineos because at the end of the day, we'd rather take on debt than lose equity. We don't want to lose equity or sell equity in Ineos. We'd rather take on debt. And that's the good thing about debt, is that you can always pay debt off. But if you give away equity, you can't get it back as easy. So, he's very accustomed to debt. And ultimately, in business, debt is not necessarily a bad thing. Most of us are carrying debt, whether it's a car, whether it's a mortgage. But that story about him wanting Paul Mitchell as his director of football, I'm sorry, personally, that's just not going to work. I might buy Mbappe. Not going to work, mate. Still not going to work, because I know in my heart of hearts, you cannot win as the Premier League and you cannot win as the Champions League because you don't have the funds to do it. If you did, you wouldn't be doing a deal with the Glazers. If you did, you wouldn't be only buying 50%. I cannot move past the fact that no matter what your projection is, you don't have the money. You don't. And you can say that you will have, but if you will have, why don't you have it now? Where is it all hidden? Where's this extra 3 or 4 billion to buy the rest of the club? And why can't you do it now? And why are you borrowing money through Ineos to do it in the first place? And why are you doing a deal with Joel and Avram? There's too many red flags. I'd love to be wrong. I've always defended Sir Jim and said, look, I think it's a bit unfair the way people are just obsessed with Qatar because it's super wealth. I think that is the best option, but it doesn't mean that Sir Jim's a bad option. But I think he's become a bad option, and I think that there are plenty of red flags there. And Paul Mitchell as director of football, giving a guy 100 grand a week, 100 grand a month, 100 grand a year, whatever it's going to be our director of football. It's not the same as carrying $500 million of debt. Oh, don't worry about the $500 million of debt. We're paying Paul Mitchell a couple of 100 grand a year to be director of football. All is forgiven. Oh, Joel and Avram are here as well. Don't worry about it. We've got Paul Mitchell. Yeah, it's not enough for me. So I think there is a bit of a charm offensive going on, and I think it'll work against some people. I've predicted that this is going to happen. If Sir Jim gets hold of the club, we're all going to have to just get used to it, and there will be this big charm offensive. But the bottom line for me is he's not bought all the club. It's not a full sale. He's keeping the Glazers. And as well, I don't want to be Spurs. I don't want to fight for fourth every year. I want to fight for the title. And I think that will disappear the minute that deal happens, if it did. Lars, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. 92% of you have said that you'd want Qatar over Sir Jim. So there's not much of a sway in every poll I'm seeing. But there you go. How is someone else allowed to buy United on a loan? Where are the measures the Premier League apparently put in place to stop this? It's a disgrace, says Dan. Goatbridge, love your work ethic. Keep it up. Fabrizio has just said that Sir Jim wants to... Yeah, okay. Kaylin, I'm not going to read rude comments like that out, as I'm sure you're aware. The other story that was coming out today, take it with a pinch of salt, believe it if you want. Al Thani is apparently still very much in the race to buy Manchester United. The story being that he's still confident until he hears back from the Glazers that they've rejected him. And even if that did happen, there is a notion that he would just ring them up and go direct and say, look, how do we sort a deal out here? So basically what they're saying is that if Al Thani's 5 billion bid gets rejected and they're going to go with Sir Jim, he'd want to speak to them and say, well, look, let me increase the bid then. Which sounds very, very positive. But all I would say about that is look, that sounds positive. That sounds that no matter what, we'll end up with Al Thani getting hold of the club if he's willing to pick up the phone and sort a deal out, even if it gets rejected, etc. But obviously, that's dependent on whether the Glazers actually do want to sell the club. And I think I tweeted it earlier, and I think people understand what I said, is that it might not be enough for Al Thani to name his price, because they might not want to sell. Maybe Joel and Avram never wanted to sell, and Sir Jim is now giving them the deal they wanted where they can stay and have a say in the club. Maybe that's all they ever wanted. Maybe they don't want to sell. Maybe they thought they had to sell because their siblings wanted to sell. And maybe they can't believe that Sir Jim would keep them in the club and they can stay. So maybe there's no price that Al Thani can pay to get the club now because Avram and Joel want to stay and work with Sir Jim. In which case, it probably won't matter what price he puts on it. But hopefully that's not the case, and hopefully they still will consider selling the club. If we want to not only compete but win, it needs to be Al Thani. That takes over at United, says Kyle. Thank you very much for that, Kyle. Well, look, there's obviously clearly an overwhelming amount of people that still want Al Thani to get hold of the club. Jimbo can swivel on it, says Amari. Mentally, this is too much, Mark. This is completely draining to think about every day, says Art and Travel by G. And I think we can beat Brighton because our recent format, Shaw, Lindelof and others are getting used to playing together, says Peter. Also, we've had another super chat from Hamza who says, why don't journalists actually publish how Sir Jim's other clubs' fans feel about his ownership rather than paying Schmeichel to rave about him, says Hamza. Look, whether you like it or not, politically in the UK, entertainment business in the UK, and football mainstream, whatever you want to call it, in the UK, publishers' agenda. Not everybody, but in the vast cases they do. We saw it with Ten Hag against Pochettino. The overwhelming reporting from ex-players and the mainstream media was pro-Poch and very little about Ten Hag. And it was the fans that got vocal. And thank God for communities like this and others that there was a place that we could do that. Because if that didn't exist, how would the club hear it? The same thing has happened with Al Thani and Sir Jim. We've had an abundance of scrutiny around Al Thani and any potential Qatari ownership of Manchester United. Absolutely loads of it. In relation to Sir Jim, nobody's even bothered in the mainstream to go and speak to any Nice fans. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. There's been no delving into his background at all. There's been no scrutiny. It's just, this is the person we want and this is what we're going to do. And this is what people talk about politics in this country. Certain news outlets will, bury some stories about certain political parties and promote others about the one they want to get in. This has been the suspicion about the mainstream in this country and probably in many other countries for a very long time. The suppression of freedom of speech and fair reporting. And it's very, very sad, which is something we try to not do in this community, and many others try and do it as well. I mean, bloody hell, all that joke last week about, Neville being scared to have a debate with me. I mean, that's just small fry, isn't it? But small fry doesn't even matter. I mean, most of it's just funny. But the reality is, if that's sort of what happens everywhere in this country. People get kiss-arsed and can sort of run the media in the way they want to and suppress others. And that's what we've seen. That's what we've seen with Sir Jim. There is no scrutiny of it at all. If you didn't know better or couldn't converse with each other, you'd think that Sir Jim Radcliffe was absolutely perfect, that Nice fans love him, that the way he runs his businesses, the way he wants to get hold of Manchester United is perfect. I mean, I can't believe it's been a week since it was reported that Sir Jim Radcliffe wanted to keep Joel and Avram in the club, and nobody said anything. It's hysterical, because actually these same journalists and media outlets that have said nothing spent bloody weeks telling us how bad the Elliott Group were. Oh, this Elliott investment group from America wants to help the Glazers stay in the club. Oh, it's terrible. Oh, I can't believe it. And there's another one, Carlisle Group. They want to do it as well. Oh, it's terrible. It's just greed and mercenary, and it's horrible. Yeah, so Jim wants to do it. Oh, you're not writing anything? No, I just got to take a few days off and reflect on Easter, think about holidays in the summer, and I'm just going to wait and see. I don't think it's fair to put an opinion out there. I'm just going to wait and see what happens. Hold on a minute. 2 weeks ago, you were talking about how evil the Elliott Group were and the Carlisle Group. So Jim wants to do the same thing. Well, let's just see. Let's just wait and see what's going to happen. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. But you didn't know what was going to happen 2 weeks ago, and you're still gobbed off. Yeah, but let's. In fairness to Sir Jim, who knows what really is going on? We don't know. We don't want to say anything too much. And plus, I know Sir Jim, and if I say anything bad, I won't be allowed in the press conference or anything like that. So I won't get a position on the board or the fan forum. So no, you can't say too much about Sir Jim trying to do a deal with the Glazers, because we just don't know. It's all speculation, isn't it? Well, why don't you bloody say that about Al Thani then? You've just been telling us how you can't have a club that's state-owned. He says he's not state-owned. He said it's his own money. Well, it's not. Yeah. And that's what we've been subjected to for the last 3 or 4 months. If the shoe fits, they'll bloody wear it. If it's doesn't fit, they won't even talk about it. Mark, I can't imagine that Qatar will lose. They wouldn't go for it if they know they can't get the club, says Tony. Well, that was a story from before, that when they go for something, they get it. If it was a case that Sir Jim was buying outright, settled the debt, creating better facilities and upgrading the ground, then I wouldn't have a problem, says Slow Sports News. Any chance of getting some Nice fans on for interview on United Stand? That would be really interesting, says Smoggy. Slow Sports News has gifted 5 memberships. Thank you very much. And Kyle says, if we have done that one as well. Well, look, I think one very interesting thing here to say is that what Slow Sports News says is absolutely spot on. If Sir Jim Radcliffe was offering to buy the whole club, full sale, clear the debt, build a new stadium, spend $1 billion on players and infrastructure, I'd be like, let the best man win. That's where I am. And this is the thing that I think some people are missing. And it doesn't frustrate me, because I think it proves that they are ignorant, not us. If Sir Jim and Al Thani, if Sir Jim was offering what Al Thani is, which is to clear the debt, build a new stadium or renovate Old Trafford, and spend money on players and infrastructure consistently over the next few years, if Sir Jim was offering that, I'd go, well, I don't know what's best. Flip a coin. Which name do you like best? Who do you think's got the best haircut? I don't know. It wouldn't really matter to me, because I'd be like, they're both doing what I want. That's my issue with Sir Jim. It's just he's not doing what we need to do. He's doing what he wants to do because he wants to get hold of the club. He didn't get hold of Chelsea for the same reason, because his offer was crap compared to Todd Bowley's. If he was offering the same, I wouldn't care if he got hold of the club. It's nothing personal. I think people want to turn this into, how can a United fan want state ownership? Well, apparently it's not state ownership. So what are you even bloody talking about? But ultimately, it's a full sale. That's what United fans want. And if Sir Jim was offering a full sale instead of whatever else he's offering, then people would be behind it. Mark, couldn't Al Thani box Smart over $3.5 billion for half of the club, then get his foot in the door? Says Warrior. Well, yeah, potentially. Tony Marcial says, Mark, I can't imagine... Yeah, I've done that one from Tony Marcial. Thank you very much for that. Qatar only option if we're going to compete with City and Newcastle, says Steve at the fair. And Radcliffe out, Glazers out, full sale only, says Danny B. And morals don't exist in the world of football, says Jack High. You have the live stream in 15 minutes, says Doodley. Yeah. 15 minutes. You just answered your own question. If you put time in on Google, you can read what the Nice fans are saying and all this news and much more. It's all out there, says Barry. Well, I presume he's going to sell Nice if he gets hold of Manchester United anyway, because whatever the Nice project is, it's over. So I was thinking this when Kasper Schmeichel was talking last night about how great Sir Jim is. And I thought, well, you've got your contract, mate. I'd actually, maybe he's going to leave. Maybe he's going to be our new backup goalkeeper. I don't know. But the Nice journey's over if he gets hold of Manchester United. He's not going to be... The project at Nice hasn't succeeded anyway. And it's a failure if he gets hold of Man United. So you could twist that around quite simply and say the Nice project was a load of bullshit. He lied. Because he bought it to be successful. They're a mid-table club. He now buys Man United. Forget Nice. So Nice was a failure. So we're getting an owner who's a failure. But people don't want to talk a bit about it like that. And maybe he's going to keep Nice, and maybe he's going to try and use it as a feeder club. I don't know. But it's not the success that, people talk about. But look, I don't know the full details. I just think it's full of red flags. You say that it's a community, but you always seem to say we need the Glazers out. They helped us bring in a third European Cup and a Europa League, says Sam. Yeah, Sam. You know what? It's a good job you're a keyboard warrior and not saying that out on the streets, because we'd have to get some protection for you. Mark my words, we will sell Garnacho for 150 million to Real, says Titan. You know what, Garnacho? Apparently he's got a release clause. We never give release clauses, but apparently there's a rumour that he's got a release clause of about 100 million. So he won't be going for 180 million, will he? He'll be going for a lot less than that. But apparently he's got a release clause. I don't know how true that is. We've never done release clauses before, and I'd have to see it to believe it. But apparently there is a release clause. It was being rumoured yesterday. I saw an article somewhere about it. I'd be very surprised if we have, but there was a story about it. Surely a story coming out basically saying that Qataris have openly said that they will pick up their bid if needed is surely false. If true, they are basically upping the price themselves, and they aren't that stupid, says Cameron. Well, look, we get locked into this, what's going to happen next, don't we? And I think what's going to happen next is that, and I read something today, that what should happen next is the Glazers pick a winner. And really, it'll be Al Thani or Sir Jim, and then they'll work forward with them to try and get them over the line. But then the same person was also saying that might not happen. They might use this as an opportunity to start getting the bid up higher and higher by saying, well, we're going to accept this bid unless you go higher. Okay, he's gone higher, are you going to go higher? In which case, we're almost into a an open bid stage after three closed bid stages? I don't know. I've always said, and I've always been worried, and I think that worry is fast going to become a reality, that we're just not going to have new owners in for the start of this transfer window. And I think we spoke about it last week or the week before, and it came out again at the weekend anyway. Eric Ten Hag doesn't know what his transfer strategy is because he doesn't know how much he's got to spend, and it's the 2nd of May. At this point, I'd take Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElney, says Kevin. Thank you very much for your super chat. Paul Brook, welcome to the Members Club. Hello, hope you're doing well. Thoughts on Tyler Adams if Leeds go down as a backup CDM, says Wesley. Well, look, Tyler Adams, for me, looked like a very interesting player, but he's not really set the world on fire at Leeds. Is that his fault? I think they've all got to collectively take a look at themselves. But then again, just because you get relegated doesn't mean you're a bad player. But I don't think he'd be top of my list at the moment. I would have probably took a look at him in January because I think we should have took a look at a few players. But right here, right now, I don't know that would be a good move for Manchester United. Mark, would you write off this transfer window to get Qatar, says Rowan? I think it'd be a shame to do that. But would I write off a summer transfer window to get the right owners for the next 20 years? Yes. I'd do it for the next 10. What's one summer transfer window for 10 years of being able to be a big club again? What pisses me off is writing next season off and watching Man City win it all again. But ultimately, yes, short-term pain for long-term gain is something we've mentioned multiple times over the last 10 years. Ari has put a super chat in. He says, do you think Al-Thani knows that the fans want him, hence that motivates him to get the club? I'm not sure Glazers really want to sell, says Ari. Well, I think that ultimately is what it comes down to. I think if the Glazers... You can simplify things a lot in life, and if the Glazers wanted to sell the club, they'd sell to Al-Thani. That's the bottom line. If they wanted to sell the club, they'd sell to Al-Thani because he's the only one who wants to buy the whole club. So they'd just sell it. The problem is, I don't think Joel and Avram ever did want to sell. I think they want to stay around and double their money and try and get, instead of getting 1 billion each, they want 2 billion each, and they want to stay around for another 10 years. So Sir Jim's offering them the opportunity to do that. I think that's the problem. If Al-Thani rings them up and says, look, I'll give you 6 billion for the club, they'll probably go, no, Sir Jim's letting us stay for 10 years, we're going to stay. Sorry, thanks for your interest. But I think that's the problem. Is it genuinely up for sale now? Or has Sir Jim put a deal in place that keeps Joel and Avram in place themselves? But then I can go back and repeat myself and say they own Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're not selling Tampa Bay Buccaneers because an NFL team is a franchise. There is no relegation. You can be totally shit 1 year and then you can win the Super Bowl in 2 years. So the thing about NFL is there is no Man City really. You can't dominate like Man City do or like we did. People will say, well, look at Kansas, they do quite well, and the Patriots did quite well, but it's not normal for that to happen really, because it's franchise football. There is no relegation. There's a draft system for the crap teams that favours them. There's a lot of money in the sport, and they're not going to sell Tampa Bay. So NFL does quite well in Europe. The next stage is the Middle East, and if Qatar is saying, look, we've got the stadia from the World Cup, come and play games in Qatar, we'll sort it out for you, that might be an attraction to Tampa Bay and the Glazers. So it all comes down to money, doesn't it? The thing is, we would be very naive and very silly if we ever thought it was about what's best for the fans or the club. It was never. We said it in November. We said it in the summer. We said it for the last 3 or 4 months. This sale process at no point was about what's best for the players, the manager, the fans or the club. It was always going to be what benefits the Glazers' pocket the most. That's what it's about. Because the best bid for the club won't necessarily win. We just have to hope it does. Roll on when City finally get punished for their cheating. Take those trophies from them, says Sean. Well, will it ever happen? Sumi says, but my question mark is, what if the siblings want out and want Al-Thani? Who's Avi and Joel to contest? Because they surely be outvoted, says Sumi. But I think you've missed the boat on it a bit, because the siblings would sell their 50% to Sir Jim, and then the 20% that Joel and Avram would keep would be their percentage. No one can force Joel and Avram to sell. They can't be forced to sell if they're offered an opportunity to stay. And that's what apparently Sir Jim is doing. Sir Jim will buy the 50% of the shares from the remaining Glazer siblings to give himself 50%, but Joel and Avram will be allowed to stay. That's how they do it. Did you know Joel, Darcy and Woodward own some of the 30% shares that Sir Jim doesn't want? Could that harm Sir Jim's bid, says Glenny Boy? I don't know. I know Ed Woodward was going to get, 14 million if the club sold? But Woodward would work with Sir Jim anyway, wouldn't he? They'd probably give him a job back on the board. I mean, the perception at United is that Ed Woodward did a good job from a business point of view. He's not seen as a prat like most of the fans see him. He's seen as a good business guy. How come we have protested so much over the years, yet the government never gets involved, says CGI? They don't care. That's why. They don't care. That's their bottom line. They don't care. Are Avram and Joel the only ones who have a say as to who gets the club, or do all the shareholders have to agree on the buyer, says Sis? I don't know how that works, to be honest. I don't know. You would imagine that the 31% of shareholders would have a say, and maybe they don't want to give their shares up as well. So in which case it goes more into Jim's favour, doesn't it? We are live on That's Football in a few minutes' time, yes. Chelsea against Arsenal. I'll be doing that in a minute. Mark, thoughts on Nonto leaving Leeds, with Leeds possibly going down? Good player. Don't know whether we need him at Manchester United. The government can't get involved anyway, says Joe. Mark, how comes you aren't speaking about how more British players bias in the club if Sir Jim Radcliffe takes over? Maguire would probably even retain the captaincy, or Kane might come and take it. Well, I don't need to talk about stuff like that, because that's not something that we've got any evidence of at the moment. It'd just be pure speculation. I'd rather deal with what we know, or what is being reported, and that is that Sir Jim Radcliffe is not going to buy all of the club. He's only going to buy half of it, and he's going to keep Joel and Avram in place, and he's going to keep the debt. I read something today, and this is what frustrates me. People start to make things up or mishear. Somebody replied to me today and they said, don't know what you're talking about. He quite clearly said that he's going to take the debt from the club and put it onto Ineos. And I'm like, this is how rumours start. That's never been said. What was said is he's going to borrow money to buy United, but that money he's borrowing to buy United will not go on the debt that's already at the club. Ineos would keep the debt, but the debt that the Glazers have of £500 million will stay. But people have this person has heard what they wanted to hear, and they've decided to, instead of hearing Sir Jim's borrowing money to buy the club, but Ineos is going to take the debt of borrowing to buy the club, they've heard that Sir Jim's going to take the debt that the Glazers have on the club and put it onto Ineos. That's not what's been reported, and it's never been reported. But that starts to go around then, and people start to believe it. It's changing the narrative, Marvin, exactly. The story has always been, and Sir Jim and his people have had weeks to change that story and refute it and say it's not true. The story has always been, even when Sir Jim was going to buy all of the club, he was only going to buy 69%. And he was never going to clear the debt. He was borrowing to buy the club, but he was going to put that borrowing onto Ineos, not Manchester United. But he was never clearing the debt that's already here that the Glazers would leave. There we go. Right, I have got to go across to That's Football very, very quickly. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to play the TUS Predictor. Links in the chat as well. 10 questions. You must be over 18, be gamble aware, but 3 of you won 540 quid each for the Spurs game. So big prizes to be won. Give it a go. You can also play the free league if you want to do that. Second thing I was going to say, Dublin show, end of season Dublin show, June the 6th. I think there's still a couple of hundred tickets left, because this is the biggest show we've ever done. The capacity is over 1,000. So it's going to be an amazing show. Imagine when we're singing "Oh, Robin van Persie" then. Whole of Dublin's going to hear it. It's interactive. We've got guests. It's going to be a bloody brilliant show. Get your tickets while you can. Links in the video description, and it's in the live chat. The shows in March were fantastic. I think this is going to be really special. I can't wait. So Dublin on June the 6th, end of season show. Going to give awards out and stuff. Players are invited to come and collect their awards. I'm sure they'll be on their holidays and stuff, but they're very welcome. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you on That's Football if you're going to join me. Thanks for watching tonight.